So good morning, everyone. We are here today for the last workshop of the CHERRIES project. Today, we're going to talk about the phase 3, the co-creation process. As you know, this is an still ongoing process for the CHERRIES partners. And for today, we have Moises and Gorka from Cyprus and Murcia. They have been working not only in the project in the theoretical aspects of the methodology, but also in the more practical approach, because they have been implementing this co-creation in Cyprus and in Murcia. So first of all, we'll talk Moises about the methodological aspects of the co-creation, and then both of them, Moises and Gorka, will explain a little bit how is to implement the co-creation, and we'll share some kind of hands-on experience about the process. So if you want to introduce yourself, Moises or Gorka.
Yes. Good morning, everyone, and welcome on board on the final workshop of the co-creation. I will start by sharing my screen. Together, me and Gorka, we will showcase our experiences through the co-creation process. And we will be very happy to receive any questions from you so we can further exchange information on how do we proceed with such a process on co-creation. Please feel free to interrupt anytime during my presentation or afterwards. We would be happy to share information with you. So I will start by sharing my screen. Gorka, I think you need to make me to give me the sharing rights. Ulises.
I think you can now.
I can see the icon below the screen, you know?
Yes.
In the middle. Okay.
Great. Just a moment. So I put the full presentation mode. Great. So my name is Moises. I represent SARIC, and together I will share with you in the region of Cyprus, how do we work on the co-creation? So as you know, and being part of CHERRIES now, the whole experimentation of CHERRIES is based on the 4 major pillars of the need definition, the solution selection, the co-creation, and ultimately and eventually the adoption of our process on a regional level. So today, I will try to share our example as a region to you, and then based on that, I will share on how do we perform the co-creation process in Cyprus. So for the Cypriot case, our pilot solution was the provision of medical services to the citizens of Cyprus that live in rural and remote areas. We are an island in the size of a region, but we're a small nation. So we wanted to provide health accessibility to healthcare services to the people that live in rural and remote areas of the island. We're talking about a country with a population that's less than 1 million, with 6 provinces. We're based in the capital, in the middle of the island, and a general health system that was established only 3 years ago. So you can imagine how challenging it was through the CHERRIES project for a small country to be part of this project within a general health system transformation and the COVID situation for the last 2 years. One of the typical statistical issues that we had based on the healthcare in Cyprus is that 40% of the population currently lives away from the city centers. That means away from the healthcare providers, the hospitals, and proper and professional healthcare. Just another statistic is that Cyprus has spent below average compared to the rest of the European Union countries on healthcare, and at 43%, the public share of the health expenditure is the lowest in the EU, in contrast with the EU-wide average of 79%. So these are some basic general figures about the healthcare situation in Cyprus. And to be honest, the demand-driven approach of CHERRIES has helped us identify the correct approach and the solution in this, because although we have received 9 needs during the call for needs, there were different needs, but the common denominator of these needs was the e-health approach. So we had received multiple problems in healthcare from the submitters, but the main issue for each one of the problems was accessibility to healthcare. So our solution, and currently the co-creation process, is ultimately purpose is to provide accessibility and quality of medical services to the community that have no easy access to medical centers and healthcare. Just to mention, in our case, in contradiction with Murcia, we are the Business Innovation Center, CHERRIES, which I represent as a partner, plus Ardeon Hospital. So we don't have a policymaker as a partner in our region. Just very key figures about Ardeon Hospital. It's a center of excellence in Cyprus and one of the leading healthcare providers on the island. So that's key for us. And what we wanted briefly to convey through the CHERRIES pilot is to turn these images that you see now, the typical examples of the need, different types of problems around healthcare, and convert these problems and make e-health a catalyst to solve these issues by using telemedicine. Some of the indicative ideas that we initially had before the co-creation was the remote interaction with doctors, the assistance to chronic patients, some of physiotherapy sessions to the aging population that lives away from the city centers and the massively dense population areas, the guidance to on-site professional care staff, and of course, any other potential solution that might come up through the same means of e-health. Eventually, through the call for solutions and the selection process, we ended up with Doctors Hello, which is an ecosystem solution that provides e-health services to both professionals and patients. I will not get into much detail about the technical aspect, but we had a node that is called Cyprus CHERRIES. So all the equipment, the medical equipment and the IT equipment passes information through this node that is specifically designed for us in terms of software. And there is direct communication with the doctors and the patients. The potential benefits that we disseminated at the beginning of the solution and during the call for solutions was that we wanted to develop an impactful and responsible solution for the citizens of Cyprus. Of course, any solution would ideally be adaptable and replicable to any other region. We wanted to lead by example. That this is a project initiative, so we want to show a successful case so it could eventually be adopted. The participants will have the opportunity to receive professional support from CHERRIES and also from Ardeon Hospital, and discuss and examine the possibility to provide continuity in this particular solution. So I will get right to the point when we discuss about co-creation. And I want to be open and honest with you. At the beginning, it was also very difficult for us to understand what is co-creation, how we're going to make this happen, what is the essence around of it, and how we're supposed to document these things. The main key aspect that I wanted to share with you, and this is a point where I would like you to raise your hand and make any questions if you want, is that co-creation is not a linear process. This is how we figured that it works. So it's a very dynamic process. And based on the CHERRIES methodology that you have seen so far, that is not a linear methodology. Any region has the flexibility and adjustability to operate accordingly, always to fulfill the purpose. So as long as you tick the bullet points of responsible research innovation and the requirements of how do you perform this in your region, you are within the boundaries of what we call co-creation. So we came up with this figure after a lot of thought and a lot of field work, because it's different to design things on paper and then go to implement this at the hospital, the policymakers, the professionals, and the patients. So I would like to expand on this and say that we consider co-creation as a dynamic process that reflects the CHERRIES methodology in terms of what? We have a constant requirement analysis, not only at the beginning, because the patient's needs and the professional's needs are also dynamic. Of course, they tell us in advance what they need to do to get their job done, and the patients register in advance what are their needs. But during the development of the pilot, more needs arise, more problems occur, different approaches might happen. So we consider the requirement analysis a constant part of the co-creation. We have the engagement of the 4P model in different ways. I will expand afterwards. We have the only steady part of co-creation is the engagement of the 4P stakeholders, the patients, the professionals, the providers, and the policymakers, and the policy recommendation in the end. Anything else in between is dynamic. So the stage that you will engage the stakeholders, at least to us in Cyprus, is not the same for every occasion of the co-creation. For example, we have the patients and the policymakers and the professionals constantly engaged within the process. However, in the case of the policymakers, since we don't have a policymaker in the project as a partner, we figure that is more optimum and more impactful for us to engage them at the beginning, at the middle, in the middle, and of course in the end of the project. And this is why they don't want to commit. We need to show them results. We need to show them potential, and we need to show them that this is how it happened, it works, and now you're here to see it. So for us, there was that it was more impactful and more efficient to engage the policymakers in 3 steps of the co-creation. In your regions, it might be different. You might have them constantly engaged or at specific points of the co-creation. I just have 2 notes below in this figure, which is the co-creation process of CHERRIES encapsulates elements of the responsible research and innovation principles that will function as a guideline for the regions. There is no list that we have to share with you that if you do this and this and this, then what you're doing is a co-creation. Every region has to take the basic principles of what we describe here and adjust in the corresponding environment. And this is what reflects also to the CHERRIES methodology, the agility and the flexibility to fulfill the requirement. There is no fixed process when it comes to co-creation. All the steps in between the initiation and the endpoint are subject to adjustment in a chronological sequence, as well as in terms of content and tool functionality. So at the beginning, when we initiated the process of the co-creation, we wanted to collect specific information and specific input, because by the end of this, we also need to develop a deliverable and the policy suggestion. So we decided to put this into a framework of a timeline, although it's not a timeline. we have key elements that are described in this slide, which they are the same on the figure, on the dynamic figure that we shared before, that reflects the agile methodology of Cherries. And we made ourselves a question: what do we want to collect? How do we want to collect it? And what would make sense for us? So we said, okay, we have the qualitative information that we want to collect and the quantitative information. As far as the quantitative information that we need to collect, we decided to use questionnaires, for example, that will give us feedback and iterations and professional guidance. So, for example, in the region of Cyprus, we said that we want to measure the digital literacy, the acceptance of the solution, the adoption of the solution from the patient's perspective and from the professional's perspective using questionnaires. So in Cyprus, the patients and the professionals fulfill a questionnaire at the beginning, in the middle, and they are expected to fulfill another one by the end of the project, by the end of the pilot, by the end of the experiment. So in this way, we will be able to have measurable data and comparable data on how do they perceive the solution. So this will be a very valuable impact, a valuable input for our pilot. The same will be done for policymakers. We will ask them to fulfill their expectations and their understanding of the solution, as well as the potential of the pilot, just right at the beginning of the pilot and at the demo day. So when we describe and when we present in September our solution demo, then they will fulfill the questionnaire as a tool for us. So we'll be able to extract the information that we're looking to measure, let's say, at some point, the co-creation element. Also, when it comes to patient engagement and the policymakers' engagement, we also are eager to collect qualitative information. This can be achieved with other tools, not with questionnaires. This can be achieved with workshop, focus groups, and of course, the demo day. Some, if I could put them into a list, we came up with 3 elements. For the monitoring of the co-creation, just a small note, nobody understands what co-creation is until, at least to my understanding, until they actually get involved in and the process starts. So you should not feel worried or you should not feel stressed if this sounds very theoretical to you at this point. Once the process is initiated, then and you start the interaction with the solution provider and all the stakeholders, then it will get more. It will gain more substance and more become more solid. So at the moment, for us to monitor the co-creation, the regional teams keep a co-creation itinerary. So where we describe in a qualitative format our experiences and reflections on every step of the co-creation. So by the end of the pilot, every region should have an itinerary, because what makes sense for the co-creation is for us to be able to describe and share our experience with the rest. We keep a communication log. This is a more quantitative tool, and it's not just a registry. The communication log is an Excel spreadsheet where we register our communication, but we also register the parties involved, the reason that they communicate. So in this way, we have quantitative inputs of the intensity of the communication. And at this point, an ideal example will be in Cyprus, for example, During the pilot, we had 60% of the communication was done between the solution provider and the healthcare provider for technical reasons. 20% of the communication at the beginning of the pilot was between the healthcare providers and the policymakers. So these are the types of data that we need to collect in order to extract and write down valuable insights of the process of the co-creation. And of course, what I described before, the questionnaires as a quantitative tool of data collection before, during, and after the co-creation, that for us would reflect measurable results on expectations between theory and reality of the participants. Some considerations that I wanted to share with you in bullet points. So consider that we are also in the middle of the process. So it's a lessons learned approach for us, from us to you. You need strong project management skills because you need to be in the middle of the stakeholders, the solution provider, the management team, the communication team. So there has to be some project management provision. You need, for your own solution, for your own pilot, to consider what would ultimately be measurable enough. What would you like to collect by the end of it? So at some point, the reverse engineering approach, what would look ideal for me in the end, helps when setting up the strategy for the pilot. There are different knowledge and epistemological perspectives to be considered. So I'm a project manager, so I see this project and the pilot from a very specific angle, but from a doctor's perspective or from a patient's perspective is totally different. So it's good to integrate their perspectives in our narrative. This is why we call it co-creation. We try to design a solution in a pilot that ultimately and ideally would be adaptable in every region or in other regions. And of course, always have in mind that the ultimate question would be, what would be the policy recommendation out of it at the end of the process? You need to be proactive on the logistics. Just some examples: in Cyprus region, we have a solution provider that is not from Cyprus. So we have equipment shipped to Cyprus. So different logistic problems arise. We had the snowstorms in December. Then this equipment had batteries inside. So batteries had to have different certificate approvals. So there was a bureaucratic process for the certificates of the batteries. Then you had the shipping and with the electronics. And so there are logistic problems that arise that we have not foreseen before. Some of the equipment was out of stock. For example, we use an ultrasound in our e-health solutions, and the ultrasound is out of stock because of the global shortage in supplies. So be proactive on the logistics will always be beneficial during the co-creation process. Not all 4 Ps, the patients, the professionals, the policymakers, and the providers, are involved at the same time and at the same level during the co-creation. Communication is key. Solution providers, to us at least, the main regions of the project, provide a progress report. This helps putting the framework of, okay, we need to see where we are standing now. What is there a contingency plan? What is the plan? Please stick on time. So having the leashes a bit more strict when it comes to project management helps. And I will share a personal experience. I was very skeptic when I had to integrate. I come from a technical background, so I had to integrate and understand in my mind what actually co-creation is, what responsible research innovation is all about. So the key here when we talk about co-creation and responsible research innovation is to be able, by the end of this pilot, to encompass all the information that we have gathered through the questionnaires, the measurable results, the quantitative data of the registry logs and the focus groups, and the exchange of information and perspectives through the qualitative approaches, to be able to generate a narrative for our region and describe the process and the story that fulfills all the elements of the CHERRIES methodology. That was it from me. I hope I covered a lot of your considerations. And of course, I'm happy to receive any questions that you might have.
Okay, thank you, Moises. I think that we can wait for the questions for the end of the, okay, well, if you want to ask, Teresa, go ahead.
Yes, hello. Thank you very much. It's maybe I would say a stupid question, but anyway, I'll put it
anyway.
There
are no stupid questions.
Now, the thing is that at least from my point of view, you have emphasized quite a lot the need to report the whole process and build up the story, because this is a pilot and it's meant to be replicated. But is that a general request, or was it what was it about within CHERRIES? Because CHERRIES was objective, if I understood well, was to really develop a methodology, test it, and then find others that could replicate. Meaning, me as an uptaker, of course, it's always important to report the processes, to be able to then say what has happened. But I don't know, wouldn't we need to balance a bit the effort we put in the reporting process, and maybe dedicate more time and effort to the process itself? Because, and this links to another aspect, you mentioned at a certain point, by the end, we shall have an itinerary, how things have evolved, and it can be different. But that itinerary is really, I guess, very different, even for the same region, in different topics. Meaning that the local ecosystems that we have, for instance, in to address the issue, healthcare, provision of healthcare to rural areas is completely different from, I don't know, something about the urban areas or anything else. Meaning that each, and if you get out of the health issue, because, and we have one of our mirror regions is really to test the methodology in other issues, another domains, thematics. If you get out of the health issue, even more, meaning that, yeah, the guidelines, and I understood well, and I liked it very much, the circular scheme that you provided, meaning, okay, this is constant, this is dynamic, it depends pretty much of the dynamics in the region. Maybe you need to get something out of the local ecosystem because you miss it here, so you need to go and find it elsewhere, and it depends, it really depends. So my question is it worth dedicating so much effort to document the process and have the narrative and so on when you are a uptaker, not within the CHERRIES project, of course?
Teresa, thank you for the very long question. To be honest, I don't know what is expected from you as a deliverable or a reporting of the process. So, of course, there has to be a reporting. For us, the problem was we have a project within the project. We have a pilot to implement within a project. And then this pilot, which is a project to manage, there is a problem, you implement a solution, end of story. However, at the end of the day, someone reading your reporting has to understand that, okay, this is a co-creation process. So the problem for me at the beginning was, what is the difference between co-creation and solving a problem? So I need to provide a solution that I have chose the solution provider. Yes, that's one thing. But all the other elements of inclusivity, engagement of the policy of the 4P stakeholders, measuring the impact of your solution, because you ultimately need to prove that you have had some impact with this solution, are all elements of the co-creation. So there is no to-do list, if you ask me, for you on how do you show that you have co-created as a mirror region, as long as you can prove it and describe the narrative of it. For example, if someone asks me in Cyprus, I can tell them, yes, even in the selection committee, we try to keep co-creation elements of gender equality. I mean, make even the selection committee as much as equal as I could get with the specialities and the gender. Then we had to think of how we can show to the outside world that this process is different, is demand oriented, is responsible. How do we show to other people that this is not just a call for solutions and it's a co-creation? So we thought of these tools that I shared with you today that will ultimately help us to extract measurable results, that if someone reads them, for example, the registry log, which is something very simple, but at the end it will be something very useful, because we will know the intensity of the stakeholders and the reasons of communication and at which stage. For example, what should be policymakers did not even engage, or they were heavily engaged. Healthcare professionals did not even care at the requirement analysis at the beginning. So by the end of the pilot, having this simple tool for us will be very helpful to extract meaningful meaningful information that will help the reader understand how co-creation happened. I'm just thinking out loud now. Imagine that we're applying e-health solutions in Cyprus, and we report technically that internet connection was not very good in rural and remote areas, so we cannot use the tools basically. This would reinforce the adoption of 5G, for example, on a policy-making decision. So these are the types of extractions that we would like to get out of the experimentation process. We, of course, we're problem solvers and working in the field. We're not theoretical, let's say, approaching the process. So we need tangible, measurable actions that would get the job done and provide us useful information. I know that behind the scenes, there is a lot of work, a lot of administration, a lot of problems to be solved. And we do not want to put people in an endless administration loop of filling documents and registering everything. So to my opinion, these three simple approaches, if are done consistently, would be very useful in the end of the process. But to ultimately answer your question, I don't know at this moment as a person what is expected by the end of you when it comes to reporting, but ultimately to showcase that you have co-created and describe the process, there has to be an element of everything that we have shown in the figure, at least reflected in your report. But it's up to you to decide how and when and at which stage.
Okay, thank you very much. Actually, I was out of the CHERRIE project framework. We coordinate a smart specialization strategy in the region. So for me, the interest of Central being a mirror region was to learn a methodology that can be used in this domain, which is one of our priorities, but also in others. And so that's the reason of my project. So actually, if you ask me, I'm not so sure what we have to deliver within the CHERRIES project. Actually, I didn't understand that we had to deliver anything. You had to deliver these workshops to try to have some regions uptaking, learning, and eventually uptaking the methodology. And if I understood well by the time frame of the CHERRIES projects, that there will be no time for us to deploy a process within that time frame, but maybe I'm wrong. But anyway, that was not my concern, because we will do what we have to do within the CHERRIES project. For me, the interest is learning the methodology and being able to replicate it in our management of the smart specialization strategy, to be honest.
Excellent. Just a small note. I've been doing this for 7 years. I mean, we have an incubator, an R&D center, entrepreneurship center, etc. This is the first time through CHERRIES, the methodology, that it was demand-driven and oriented. And at the beginning, I could not understand the point, because it was very hard. It was very hard to convince people that you need to submit a need. This need ultimately would be selected, and based on that need, someone would launch a call for solutions, and then someone of this. So it's like people are used to, there is a call, you submit, you get the funding, you present a solution. This was very different and very difficult to convince. So we spent a lot of time. We needed to educate first ourselves and then the participants why they should do it. So I was very skeptical at the beginning. We launched the call for needs. We received 9 needs. Okay, there was a need for the elderly. There was a need, 2 needs submitted with people and associations with children with autism. There was 1 need with people with psychological issues and some other needs. So the difference of the demand-driven approach came when we put all the needs together and we started marking so we can qualify 1 need. Okay, the need that we have selected that was translated into a call for solution came from a community in Cyprus that lives very far away. The representative of the community is also a healthcare professional. So the common denominator, this is the difference of the demand-driven approach of CHERRIES. The common denominator, for example, the kids with autism, the problem was they couldn't access classes or online sessions with the doctors because of COVID. So the problem was not autism, it could be anything. The problem was, the real problem was access to e-health solution. Okay, so the fascinating and the beauty of this methodology, the demand-driven approach, at the end of the process was that we identified that the problem was not the problem. The problem was the e-health, the accessibility to high-quality healthcare services to people that live away. So we were very happy that we have identified through this process the actual problem and not a problem that was, I mean, if you make, what is the problem? The problem is kids with autism do not have access, but if you make, is this a problem? It was not the actual problem. The problem was the access of people that live far away from the cities to have proper medical health care. So the beauty and the functionality of the CHERRIES methodology, for us, it was very beneficial, and I understood it until the moment it appeared. I mean, I was part of the process. So it was then that I realized the impact of the demand-driven approach, because it helped us identify the real problem. I'm just saying this because it's a unique thing that happened for us in the region through cherries. And it is also reflected in the methodology. So I wish for all of your regions to be able to be part of a process like this, and would enable you to actively, let's say, identify the real problems that you are struggling with.
Okay, thank you, Moises. Very interesting, your last comment. So I think it's time for Gorka. He's going to explain how they apply the methodology in Murcia. He's a part of the Murcian healthcare system. Please, Gorka, if you want to start, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Hello, everybody. I am going to share my screen. Okay. Can you see my screen?
No, yet.
No?
No.
Sorry. Now. Yes?
Yeah. Now it's
Okay.
working.
Okay. Okay. Very good. And my name is Gorka Sanchez. I'm physician working as responsible for innovation in Servicio Murciano de Salud, in the healthcare agency, public healthcare agency in my region. And this is a question for you. What are you researching about? Is your own topic? Is your professor's topic? Or what about the people needs? This is a question about fear, about the fear of the researcher, of the innovation. And this is the RRI 6 key components: ethics, gender equality, governance, open access, public engagement, science, education, and co-creation is about 4 of these 6 key components. Okay, it's more ethics, it's about governance, it's about the public engagement, and it's about culture. Okay, these people are successful people because they are user as developers, and this is the key of the success, to be user and developer. The distance to the user is the distance to the success. With Demanddriven, we shorten this distance in order to be more successful and to be more fair. Okay, and this is RRI. Okay, and this is about CHERRIES project. And this quote from Steve Jobs is very RRI. Customer experience is the RRI approach. It's about the user, not about the technology. You must start with the needs. Okay, and this is about the other workshop you had. The previous phases of the co-creation, the webinars, the workshop, the call for needs, the selection of the winning challenge for the winning challenge. Our winning challenge was early detection of progression of multiple sclerosis, called MS Progress. We tried to have a solution with this objective. The objective of the challenge is to achieve the early detection of the progression of multiple sclerosis, applying sensors by IoT. And the challenge team was composed by local association of patients, department of clinician, biomedical engineer, researchers. Okay, it's very complete RRI approach, but this is very hard to have at the very beginning, because it's very difficult. It's very challenging for who is the owner of the proposal. Okay, This was leading by the clinician because you know, we in Murcia we had another previous European project years ago called In Demand about the demand-driven co-creation. This was focused on professional healthcare professionals, and now with CHERRIES we added a patient association and researchers in a more RRI approach. Okay. After the winning challenge, we must write the requirements for solver. We published the call for solution for the companies, looking for the best companies, and finally we selected the winning solver and start the co-creation. Okay, and this is, for example, the very beginning of the solution called MS Progress in our challenge. Okay, very well. What about the co-creation? This third workshop. The co-creation is the action phase of the whole RRI phases. This is, we have two different phases. One is the pink, the building phase, and one is the testing phase, the blue. Okay. About the pink, we have at the very beginning the design phase about use cases. The company must build the prototype one with a lot of improvements, and finally we have the company saw us the final prototype, the prototype 2. And if this prototype is validated, we must to expand the training for the rest of the users. Okay. We need different skills of users. At the very beginning, at the pink phase, the design, we must have users as designers. Okay, fewer and smarter, not representative. Okay, fewer. Why? Because the skill is very different, because the objective is very different. Okay. After this, we apply the training in order to expand. At the second phase, we must have more users as testers, not as designers. More users and more representative about, because the objective now is not the design, it's the adoption. Okay. And this is the two different phases in the timeline of the co-creation. In this is about the co-creation is the timeline with the months of the 10 months of the MS co-creation exactly. And this is the co-creation in action. For example, in demand project, the previous project about demand-driven co-creation. This is co-creation in EPICO. EPICO was a solution for the challenge, and finally a solution for the communication of the epileptic patients, the families, the relatives, and the clinician, the neurologic, and this in this table is we can see all the people involved. Our co-creation about in Menudo, for example, about the obesity in childhood, with nurses, families, very smart person designing the challenge and the solution, but thinking about the need. What is the need and what is the solution? This is the final result of this co-creation at the final of the pink phase, the final prototype 2. It was Sporty Family APP. Okay, it was a game for all the family in order to have knowledge about how to avoid the obesity in the childhood. And this was the training, but very special training, because it was like a party. It's highly recommended to have to present to introduce this training as an event, a social event, in order to have to involve, to have commitment with the group in the emotional side. Okay, this was very successful party. What about the recommendation from our experiences? For the most the high recommendation is culture. Culture is a strategy for breakfast, said Peter Drucker. For example, you must have support for your professional or your people involved in the co-creation, professional, patient association. For us, this was a workshop in order to have knowledge, innovation network, people with supporting our professionals, and certificates was very a great success, because it was points for our professionals. This was the first healthcare professional workshop in demand. It was around more than 100 people attended, and this is the knowledge is about at the very beginning. It's about the you must be sure about the need, not about the solution, and it's highly recommended to know the difference between need and solutions. Okay, we don't need a drill, we need to hand a painting, and this need different solutions. Okay, it's very open. Benefits of getting involved: co-leading a project to improve your daily work, obtaining a certificate for submitting proposal. It was very successful for our professional. I recommended this. Developing the solution with the best company is a great experience. It's co-creation and assessing the impact, health outcomes, or satisfaction, or cost benefits, and this is publications. You can publish the results. Okay, and this is about the benefits for especially for the professional. For example, this was an international award for one of our hospital in a previous project, European project, done in demand in Fitch. And this was not expected, but it was it's very high. It's highly recommended. If you have success, for example, in order a lot of proposals or something like this, you must show to the public this success. In order of this, I recommended for example, this is our first gala in demand years ago. Okay, it was special because some of these attendees, people, was at the next year winning of the second iteration of In Demand. Okay, this was the next year, the second gala in Demand. Is very beautiful event. I recommend it a lot of this. It's like for me, it was like a Cinderella party, because a lot of people had for the very first time one option to be known. And this finally create a culture in our entity. Okay, and this expertise is like cycles, and it's growing year by year. And what about because before was about especially about the healthcare professional, but what about the patient? Regarding patients, you must take into account the interest to decide to participate, the expectation about the experience, the risks with the experience, the opportunities in this experience, and what is the patient's role in the research. Lesson learned. This is the dark side of our experience, but it's the wisdom I want to share with you. Lesson learned. First, all months are not the same. You beware of summer, of vacation, different entities, especially with the healthcare professionals. For example, in healthcare professional, it's not possible to launch a call or to start a new project in winter or in summer because are not able to be involved. Second, challengers have to make an extra effort, and you must take into account this. It's unplanned. The innovation is unplanned in these entities, in public, in patient association, for example. Oh, this is very good lesson learned. Best is the enemy of better. It's Spanish quote or something like this. I recommended short cycles and improvement. Okay, you must have the minimum viable product. And I recommended methods like Agile or Scrum. Okay, and not wait to be perfect. Only practice. Okay, and short cycles, and improvement. This is about the coordination between two different way of work and two different atmospheres or culture, the companies and the challengers. The challengers as healthcare professionals or as patient association or researcher are very different than companies. And you must collect them in order to working as a team. Lesson learned. Sorry for the cut. More lesson learned. You must have a only single channel of communication. If there is no sound, something is happening, probably in another channel. In this, I recommended Slack, especially as a tool for communication, but only one channel, please. For me, it's better than for working with different entities. It's very difficult to apply with team. I prefer Slack. Okay, but only one channel, not WhatsApp, emails, no, all in the same channel, and all the people in the same channel, everybody in the same. More lesson learned, more recommendation, flexibility. In innovation, the paths are never straight. You must be patient. And you assuming frustration without magnifying it. Okay, patient is a good advisor. Innovation is an adventure, and it would be to find a lot of unexpected things. And finally, you must care the atmosphere in the team, caring for the co-creation environment with respect, with dialogue, and with confidence. This is base. If this is not working, the challenge or the solution, the co-creation is that. This is a good quote. Cowards never start, weak people never finish, and champions never give up. This is the essence of innovation. Finally, as conclusions, investment is innovation and promotion on demand-driven healthcare services, opportunities and difficulties. The main difficulty for me is the change management and the resistance of the status quo in the decision for innovation in healthcare, particularly. The main opportunity is to lead the innovation, prioritizing for your own strategy. And this is about the governance. It's one of the key components, you remember, of the RRI, and ensuring the results with the validation step by step since the very beginning. Second conclusion, involvement of professional and user patients in the definition, conception, and establishment of innovative solution. How to involve the stakeholders and keep them involved during the whole processes. I think the key is to show the call for needs as an open and competitive process. I recommend it a lot, this competitive approach. Why? Because it's about the ownership of the approach, and it's very recommended. This ensures not only the best need, but the engagement of the winning team during the whole co-creation process. They are going to feel as entrepreneurs rather than workers. And this very special the moment in the co-creation kickoff meeting, when all the champions meet finally, and the champion of the call for solver, the company, the winning company, and the winner of the proposal. And it's a very long waited moment for all of them. And finally, the last conclusion: benefits of working in co-creation from the beginning of the innovation process to ensure the deployment of valid solution in their future acceptation and use. For me, it's better to start from unmet needs proposed by users in order to guarantee market opportunities for your solution. But this is for the companies. But this is for the governance. Is better for the people. This approach, and it's a guarantee of fair about our research and our innovation. The step-by-step validation for the very beginning ensures the accuracy of the product, and the users involved in the co-creation will be your best reps finally. And this is a good treasure for you. And this is an adventure, and it's recommended to apply as again, enjoy co-creation. Thanks a lot. I am waiting your questions.
Okay, thank you, Gorka. First of all, before the questions, I would like to mention, because I would like to clarify something that came up before. We are not expecting anything to deliver from the Mirror Regions. Okay, you don't have to prepare any kind of report or deliverable. But by the end of the project, of the CHERRIES project, we will give you a questionnaire to gather some feedback and your opinions and so on. But you don't need to prepare any kind of deliverable. Okay, that was it. Okay, so if you have any question for Gorka or for Moises, feel free to raise your hand and ask the question. Okay, otherwise, I don't know if Gorka or Moises, if you wanted to like to give some kind of final words to conclude the session, or if everything has been explained.
Don't be shy. This is your opportunity to solve any questions that you might have, because you have a process to make along. So we're here to answer or to solve any questions or possible issues that you might have. All in all, the co-creation for Cyprus is is in the implementation at the moment. So we are live collecting patient data. We expect to have finished by June, and we will be very happy to share results among the regions. So it's a learning process also for us. So we're looking forward for the one-to-one sessions.
Okay, I know that you are like very far away from this stage of the methodology. So don't worry if some questions came up during the process. You can always ask Moises, Gorka, or anyone from the project about the questions. And regarding the one-on-one sessions, before finishing, I would like to mention a couple of things. First of all, as you know, next week we are starting the one-on-one sessions, meaning that you will have the first meeting with your parent region. I sent you early last week the doodle. I think that I have scheduled all the meetings, but please check if you have received the invitation. And if you haven't, please send me a mail and I will share it again. Also, after the one-on-one session, the next activity we have in mind is the face-to-face meeting that will take place in May in Brussels. We're still finishing the agenda, but probably by the end of the month, we will have definitive agenda of the event. So I will start it with you. As you know, we are paying the travel and the expenses of the trip. So don't worry for that. We will arrange all the things for you. You don't need to do anything, but we need a confirmation from your side and also who's gonna participate. In any case, don't worry because I will send you a mail with all the information and get ready for it. And also, lastly, as you know, we created a common folder in which we are going to put all the files, materials, and documents of the workshops, meetings, and all the things that we are doing for the Mirror Regions. The recording of this session, together with the presentations of Moises and Gorka, will be uploaded by the end of the week or early next week. So you can find everything there. Okay. So if you don't have any more questions and everything is okay, we're going to finish this last session. Thank you to you all to come today, and especially to Gorka and Moises for the presentations. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It was a
Bye-bye.
pleasure.
Thank
Have a nice
you. Very useful. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye. See you
Bye.
soon.